Hey everyone, before we get into today's pod, I want to tell you about Blue Wire Hustle, a brand new program where you can host your very own podcast here at Blue Wire. Hustle was created to give everyone the opportunity to take your podcast to the next level. Or if you want to host a podcast and just don't know where to start, Hustle is the perfect place for you. As part of the program, you'll receive personal cover art, Q&As with Blue Wire's top podcasters, access to our community Discord, and an e-learning course full of tips and tricks. On top of that, we'll help you get your show pushed out to Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and all the other listening platforms. And the best part is, you get all of this for only $15 a month, the same rate as any other hosting site would charge you just for the initial setup. So whether you're starting from scratch or have an existing show that you want to grow, Hustle is an open door to leveling up your sports experience. Acceptance into the program is limited, so get your application in today. To apply, go to bwhustle.com/join. That's bwhustle.com/join. Check out our description box for this episode to find out more, but that's bwhustle.com/join.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hardwood Knocks. This is Adam Frommel here with my co-host Dan Favalli, and we are turning to the mailbag for today's episode. You all have been kind enough to throw some questions at us on Twitter at the NBA Math account, the Hardwood Knocks account on the social media platforms, and we are going to be answering most of those questions, I believe. The podcast, as always, is brought to you by betonline.ag and Indeed. You'll be hearing from them shortly. But most importantly, Dan, before we get into this, how's it going?
I am doing well. We were recording this after I spent a ton of time watching the Knicks-Cavs game. It was nice to see the Cavs really put up a good fight against a true contender. They lost, but their defense was good. I like the effort from the Cavs there. Also watch a bunch of Warriors-Pistons. I've seen a lot of Pistons lately, and I'm in love with Saddiq Bey. So hopefully none of these takes are outdated as of when this goes up on Wednesday morning, because we're recording this during the start of the late games, of which there are only a few. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm curious. Are you coming around on Julius Randle yet? Is he your favorite player now?
No, he's not my favorite player, and I think the Knicks should probably trade him while his value is this high. But I really do have I really do have to commend the job he's done as passing, and there are still a few plays that make me cringe every single game. And I do think this isn't him specifically, but if you want your RJ Barrett third on the most improved player ballot pick to pan out, you just they need another shooter on the floor for him so that they can put the ball in his hands more. My other quibble is that if you're going to have Frank Ntilikina try and run point, which I'm okay with, set the guy a damn screen. Everyone, I don't know if it's because they don't think he uses them properly, but they just run away when they're about to screen for him, and then he'll just give up the ball. So those are my takes. Frank Ntilikina is still shooting over 40% from three since January 25th of last season. So I'm living the dream, and I'm hoping once Emmanuel quickly is healthy that Frank Ntilikina's minutes do not fall by the wayside, even though I think we can all agree his future does not lie in New York. He fired Leon Rose as his agent after his rookie season. Leon Rose is now the president of the Knicks. I didn't think they were going to sign an extension agreed to one, so that doesn't surprise me, but I think we can all agree that he's probably leaving in free agency or getting traded this season.
And that concludes our once per episode segment on Ntilikina.
We're only 2 minutes deep, so I have a few minutes left, if that's okay. Are you ready to dive into this mailbag, though? We got fantastic responses, and I do want to say, please respond. The tweets look so bad when they're coming from, I don't send them from my account because I have 9+K followers and I don't want the look of not having any responses. Hardwood Knocks has 4+K followers. Don't let us send a tweet out where there's no responses. It's happened to me on NBA Math too, and it's happened to you as well. And that's even worse because we have 70K followers on NBA Math.
I've decided that I am the unequivocal master of sending out mailbag solicitations that get exactly 0 responses. I don't know what it is. I try to be creative. I try to include some sort of media element, and it's amazing. Without fail, no one wants to give me the questions.
You need less shame. I beg for them in the tweets now. So you all came in resounding. First, it was just Friends of the Pods. We had 2 from Friends of the Pods, but then they came rolling in. So we appreciate everyone who asked the question. We'll try and get to all of them because we do have a bunch. But please, we'll try and get in the habit of throwing them from the Hardwood Knocks account since that's the actual podcast account. But please just respond to them. That's all we ask. Pretty please and thank you. Are you ready to get through this, though?
Let's do it.
Let's start with the first question that came in from Brian Toporek, host of the NBA podcast, which we just appeared on recently, the two of us. He has 2 questions. How does the Spencer Dinwiddie injury reshape the top of the East, and which team will be undefeated the longest, and why is it the Hawks, who, by the way, after the Cavs loss, are still in contention for that title? But let's start with the Spencer Dinwiddie injury and the East. How do you see that? Do you see it reshaping the picture at all?
I don't. I don't think it will, just because as good as Dinwiddie is and as important as he is to the Nets, if Brooklyn is going to be a true contender this season, which it very well could be, it comes down to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. They can overcome any loss that isn't one of those two players, because even with Dinwiddie gone, you still have Karis LeVert, you still have Landry Shamet, you still have Tyler Johnson to pick up those minutes. You still have TLC coming off the bench. So as long as those two centerpieces are healthy, I don't think that any other injury, even to DeAndre Jordan or Jared Allen or Joe Harris, is going to derail them. It comes down to those two players.
Yeah, the thing that I could see it reshaping, and people have framed this in the James Harden trade possibility context, I actually disagree there. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie, with a player option for next season that he was bound to decline if he was healthy, I don't think that was ever going to make or break a Harden deal. It comes down to the future first that they're going to include, how far out they're going, how many of them there are. Karis LeVert, so you definitely want him to be healthy. And then what other teams are offering. So Spencer Dinwiddie is probably even below Jared Allen on the list of assets that matter in that trade. That's not an indictment on how good Spencer Dinwiddie is, because I do think that there was probably a team that would have paid him, between $15 and $20 million a year in free agency this summer. I don't know if that will happen anymore. So you do get to see that. What I think it actually changes is the Nets' ability to make another move that matters, because now, looking at his salary and just his overall value, that was the player you could move, knowing you'd still have a ton of ball handling because of Karis LeVert, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, and then you could try and prioritize perimeter defense or just defense in general at the 4 spot. Aaron Gordon was a name that I kept coming back to for them, and Orlando could certainly use someone like Spencer Dinwiddie, so that type of framework. And now you're sort of left with, when you're looking at potential salary filler too, Taurean Prince and stuff. And what is that stuff to make Taurean Prince's deal, which is looking just worse and worse by the day? What are you now able to do? So can you make that medium-sized move now is what I would question. That's what that changes. The Nets may be so good already that it doesn't matter, though.
Yeah. Now, as for Brian's second question, we're down to 2 undefeateds left, and somehow those are the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks. And as much as it pains me to say this, it's probably going to be the Magic that are the last undefeated team left standing, and that's only because of how the games line up. So the Hawks play next on Wednesday night against the Brooklyn Nets. That might not go so well after the Hawks' first 3 wins came against non-playoff teams from last year, and the Magic have the luxury of waiting to play until Thursday, when they're probably going to lose the Philadelphia 76ers. So my prediction is that by this weekend, we won't have any remaining undefeated teams, which is hilarious this early in a season, as topsy-turvy as it's been. But the Magic are the beneficiaries of having that extra day off.
Yeah, so that definitely helps them. The thing I've been impressed with the Hawks, though, one, they have the league's best offense right now, and they've been about average defensively, which is kind of
a little above average defensively. Trae Young actually has been a pesky defender who has been in the right spots, has absorbed contact, has made the right rotations. He might not finish dead last in every possible defensive metric this year.
Yeah, he and Brandon Ingram both just look like they're playing more physical, and I'm just using them as comps because they're both so skinny and smaller. Brandon Ingram's actually fairly tall. They have the league's best offense, been about average defensively, and that's while not getting a great start from John Collins and just being banged up beyond reason, where Rondo only recently made his season debut. Chris Dunn has a foot injury right now. They haven't had Onyeka Okongwu. Yeah. So they haven't had their full supply of players available. And they had good minutes being played by Nathan Knight in their win over the Grizzlies. They have to be careful with him because he's a 2-way player at the moment. So, but he was intriguing. But I've seen a lot of Solomon Hill in the Hawks games that I've watched thus far. It's I would say Gallo banged up too. So they have not had by anywhere near their full cast of supporters there. And so to still be undefeated, yeah, you can look at the teams that they've beaten, and John Morant didn't go down in the loss to them. That was a loss to the Nets. So they've beaten some teams that aren't very great, but they've had some the Pistons game, the Pistons put up a fight in that one. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Hawks.
But a fight nonetheless.
Yeah, and so I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Hawks. They definitely have the tougher road to it, but I'm now more interested than ever to see what this team looks like at full strength, insofar as it ever gets to it this season.
The reason I'm confident that we won't make it to the weekend with an unbeaten team, though, is because I don't think the Magic are going to beat the 76ers. If they do, I'll be wrong. But the Hawks have to play the Nets twice. And like they probably aren't sweeping the Nets in Brooklyn.
Probably not.
I feel like that's a safe bet.
Brooklyn did lose to the Hornets.
But they didn't lose to the Hornets twice at home.
That's also fair as well. So yeah, I mean, but look, I'm just saying, the Hawks start has been more encouraging than not under the circumstances.
They feel like a very legitimate good team.
Yes.
I think they're not going to go undefeated, maybe. But we can already say that.
Maybe they'll be like 70-2. They'll lose those 2 games to the Nets, and then that'll be it.
That's fair. They'll just learn from that. Then when everyone's healthy, just run roughshod over the league.
I mean, it's just the final note for me on them is it makes a world of difference just having good shooters around Trae Young. They were dead last in 3-point percentage last year. They're now second, and I feel like they haven't been using him off the ball as much as I would have liked, but they also haven't had their full supply of ball handlers available, so that doesn't surprise me. And then also, he just hasn't had to like do as much, and even though his floaters aren't falling at the moment, like there's more room for him to operate, and it just shows.
I mean, the dude is averaging 15 free throw attempts per game. Like, he's doing a lot. I think
he's still doing it.
The bigger thing is that the shooters aren't hitting their shots yet. Like, we're seeing how beneficial the spacing is just through their sheer presence, not through them actually connecting on those looks.
Well,
when they do start hitting, which they probably will, like
Bogdanovich already like kind of came out of it.
Historically good.
Yeah, Bogdanovich kind of got hot in the game against the Pistons, so that'll help. But yeah, they're a team that I'm just even more interested in after seeing their first few games. This next question threw some shade at me, probably deservedly so, comes from Dr. Mantis Toboggan. Corbor is the handle. Can you guys talk about the Pels? Talk about how good the Pels look with Steven Adams and how wrong Dan was about Adams' impact. I followed up with this question because I wanted to know what I said that was inflammatory. And on our Pelicans preview with Mason Ginsberg, I said, whereas I think about the Tristan Thompson edition for Boston and hate it, the more I think about it, the more I think about Adams for the Pels. I like it. I just am not crazy about the opportunity cost of it. That being said, I apparently was among the national analysts, whatever you want to call me, bemoaning that they didn't put a floor spacing 5 next to Zion. The Pelicans are shooting they're playing at the moment while we're recording this, but entering Tuesday night's game against I can't even remember who they're playing right now. I'm blanking on it. But entering Tuesday night's game, they are shooting against the Suns. They're shooting 42.5% from 3 when Adams and Zion are on the floor. I don't know. And I expect that to hold. And by that, I mean, I don't expect that to hold. But Steven Adams has done a great job, like, creating space with his screens. He's done wonders for them. You could just see, I don't know if this is him, but, like, they're pretty good defensively this year. Maybe that's part Adams. That's part Stan Van Gundy's magic touch. But, like, Brandon Ingram looks more engaged. There was a play the other night where he, like, shoved Lonzo Ball back on to his assignment. So those are all good harbingers. And I think there's something to be said about just having reliable above average center play for X amount, 25 to 30 plus minutes per game, where you didn't even have that in Derek Favors. He was playing a smaller role and he just wasn't as available. So I guess I'm impressed by what he's done for the Pels, but like their offense is not good yet. Like Brandon Ingram looks great. His playmaking has been fantastic. He's taking more off the dribble jumpers and like they look good. They're not necessarily falling at the highest clip right now. They have the league's worst half-court offense, though, as of this writing. And there are still lineups where I would just question whether their current shooting clip is going to sustain. There are moments or combinations where they can struggle to have 2 good shooters on the court at the same time, or maybe more than 2, because I think Brandon Ingram counts, and then both of Josh Hart and Redick count, but they're not playing together a ton that I've seen just yet. And then it's like, do you consider Lonzo Ball a good shooter? Like, I don't think you could go that far. And overall, they're 14th in 3-point efficiency for the season at 36.5%, which is fine. And, you would like to see them up like higher because top 10 right now is well into the 38-39% range. So that's still something I'm going to be watching. I do not hate the Steven Adams addition, and I'm sure that I was wrong on some level. Maybe I thought it was going to it could hamper them defensively because they wouldn't be as mobile, even though Adams' teams have generally done a better job of limiting looks at the rim when he's been on the court. So the Pels have been fine, encouraging. I need to see a lot more from their offense overall. And I think they're built to struggle in the half court when you look at Bledsoe. Lonzo Ball doesn't really operate on ball in the half court as well. Ingram is good enough to kind of get them out of it, but they might need to get quirkier with some of their lineup combinations, or maybe their roster construction comes back to bite them. We're still so early. It remains a concern of mine.
According to NBA Math's adjusted team ratings, the 3 worst offenses in the league so far, and with this stat, 100 is league average, anything below is worse. The Golden State Warriors, 89.7, the Toronto Raptors, 92.6, and the New Orleans Pelicans, 93.1. That's all entering Tuesday's slate of games. I don't expect any of those 3 to hold. And the Pelicans in particular, it's not necessarily because Adams is a great fit alongside Zion Williamson and everyone else, but because they just do have that requisite talent to figure things out and experiment with more lineups, as you mentioned. I still have concerns over the lack of shooting, but the big qualm with the Adams addition was the pairing with Zion. And with respect to just that pairing, I've seen enough that I'm already not concerned, even if the early results haven't been great, just because Zion has such a preternatural understanding of spacing and body control that even if the paint is a little bit more congested, it just doesn't seem to matter. He's a freight train in the open court. He has an uncanny ability to kind of squeeze through those crevices and still find ways to finish plays above or below the rim. And I just think that because he has that ability from the 4 spot, that you can get away with having that Adams pairing, because Steven Adams does so many other things well. He's a fantastic screen setter. He's a great team defender. He's a great individual defender. He's an underrated passer. He has some ability to put the ball in the basket from around the hoop. Even if he isn't stretching the floor, he does so much good, and Zion is uniquely capable of accounting for the weakness, the purported weakness, that I just don't think it's going to matter in the long run.
Yeah, I think and I would even say, you said the returns haven't been like great. I would say they've been really good with Zion and Steven Adams on the floor so far.
I mean, on defense, just not on offense.
To be questionable on offense, they are so dependent on Brandon Ingram right now when they're not operating in transition, which they need to figure out. His half court offensive rating differential is in the 73rd percentile right now. Again, that's still early, but that's just monstrous. And when you look at like some of the other main ball handlers, Bledsoe, Ball, Redick, the offense is all worse when in the half court when they're on the floor right now. So just something to monitor. And Coreboard did make, I don't know your first name, I apologize. Is it Corey? But we've talked on Twitter a bunch and we appreciate engagement. He did note, who are the Pels supposed to sign when you're looking at the floor spacing 5? I think that's a very fair criticism. Like, they could go out and pick up Dwayne Dedmon right now, who's just floating around out there, but like that's not the idea of Dwayne Dedmon, but he hasn't shot threes well in, is it 2 seasons now ever since that year with Atlanta? Or maybe it's just a full season because it feels like that one season lasted
I have no
forever.
concept of time anymore.
Right.
So.
I think it was 2018, 2019. So last season
like
was
a decade ago.
Yeah, was kind of a dud for him there. But that's also like, unless you were going to get in Aaron Baines, which I don't even like, he's not a bankable floor spacer. So unless you were going to get a Marc Gasol, unless you were going to get a Serge Ibaka, which you clearly weren't, and you could probably argue that just the way that Steven Adams moves about on defense right now, he's going to be better for you than Ibaka anyway. I think that's a fair criticism. If that's probably something that we lacked on this podcast, to name alternatives, just because there weren't many. I do think long term, if you're not playing Zion at the 5, that's what you want to do, is find that floor spacer there. Do you want to get to the one that called you out, Andre Bobrick?
Sure, let's do it.
How wrong was Adam with his Blazers takes, and has he changed his mind yet? Follow-up question from Adam, which takes would those be? Andre replied, on the Blazers wings not panning out or something. I just remember you being very low on them during one of the podcasts after the Blazers beat a full Lakers squad. I was just wondering if the defense that Rocco and DJJ played changed your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far. I don't know that my mind has changed, and maybe that's just on me for not making my original points clearer, but the lowness on the Blazers is probably just relative to the sparkling optimism that Dan had on the Blazers. Like, I still had this team in our over-unders. You know, they entered with a 40.5 win over-under from Vegas. I have them going 40 and 32, so I don't think that's like particularly low. It's more just I had questions about that wing rotation, not the full effectiveness of it, but just the individual pieces, like how much you're going to be able to rely on Carmelo Anthony, how much we can believe in Robert Covington as a true 3-and-D guy because the three ball hasn't been that consistent, whether we can rely on Derrick Jones Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. from fairly small samples. So far, all those are being answered positively. It's also only 3 games, and in those 3 games, the Blazers needed overtime to beat a shorthanded Rockets team. They beat a full-strength Lakers team, albeit on the second game of a back-to-back, and they lost their opener. So they still have a negative net rating on the season, but we're only 3 games in. So it's just hard to draw too many conclusions. But yeah, I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far. Maybe not enough to bump them that far up in my Western Conference pecking order, but so far the answers to those questions, which I do still think are valid ones, have been positive.
It's just so early in the season to walk back anything. I will say they just seem better built to navigate crunch time this season because of having Rocco.
No, I mean, I think both of us thought that they had a fantastic offseason. Like, I wish that I had made that more clear just because I did really like their offseason. I'm not ready to put them among the Western Conference elites.
I think that's fair. This question comes from Lachie Somerville. Or Lashi Somerville. Apologize for butchering the pronunciation. How will Triple J and Brandon Clarke coexist into the future? Example, is Clarke going to be a bench guy forever, or will they start together? And how will that dynamic pan out with Clarke being short and Triple J not being the best rebounder? One thing I wanted to touch on really quickly with the Grizzlies, the Ja Morant injury is just absolutely brutal for them. It's better that it's not anything like super serious. It's a grade 2 sprain of his left ankle. It'll keep him out 3 to 5 weeks. Per team announcement, I was lower on them to start the season than you, and we still haven't figured out what the bet would be.
I think the Ja Morant injury might void any bet that.
Yeah, way to walk it back now. But with Justice Winslow still out, Jaren Jackson Jr. still out, this team is firmly in the Cade Cunningham sweepstakes now. Like the 3 to 5 weeks can make that big of a difference in a truncated season. I'm just happy it wasn't more serious for Morant, and I hope that he comes back and Ja is fine. To the questions point, I personally, Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to have to get better at not only rebounding but not fouling for that pairing to work. They played 1,200 possessions together last year, and they were close to league average defensively. But the lineups they were playing in forced turnovers a ton. They fouled even more. They were pretty not great at rebounding, and so unless you're going to have strong rebounding guards and wings around them, that could get difficult, and you're going to give up kind of size or strength at one of the 2 positions in the front court. I don't know if it's tenable long term, really, to answer the question. I would be more so than the rebounding with Jaren Jackson Jr., which is a real problem, but he's also played beside Jonas Valanciunas for a bunch of his career, is going to gobble up a lot of those. It's the fouling for me because both of those 2, and even Clarke, maybe when he's trying to help, he's going to end up just getting a ton of fouls as well in that pairing, and you don't want to be sending offenses throwing parades to the free throw line, and that would be the bigger concern. So until Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't want to say proves he could improve his defense in general, but he definitely has to prove that he can defend 5s consistently, which he's not done yet at that spot. And I don't even know if the Grizzlies view him as someone they want to put at center long term. That's something that's yet to be determined. And so my guess would be that we never reach a point where both of them are just regular starters. I don't see that being a tenable front court. Maybe it's one they come to rely on a ton in the middle of games, but I would be mildly surprised if they wind up starting together, indefinitely at any point.
Plus, Jonas Valanciunas is only 28 and can still feasibly be a part of the long-term core. But with respect to the Clarke-Jackson pairing, I am concerned about it, and I know we just said we're not overreacting to these small samples early in the season, but I want to react a little to just how bad Brandon Clarke has looked in these first 3 games. I am legitimately worried about that because as pleasant a surprise as he was last year, he looks nothing like that player. He's forcing shots with an altered jumper that is incredibly ugly. He doesn't look like he knows exactly where to be on either end of the court. His floater touch has all but disappeared. He isn't getting as involved as a passer. I don't think I'm seeing a confident basketball player whatsoever at a time when they really need him to be one. And, it's not like we're talking about a guy with extreme pedigree here. He was the 21st pick in 2019 and was a pleasant surprise as a rookie. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope that I don't have to be concerned by the midway point of this season. But at this stage, I am worried about his ability to be a big part of this core.
Yeah, really uneven season for him. Had like kind of a good game against Brooklyn the other night, but was 3 of 7 at the foul line, 6-11 from the floor overall. He's actually had 2 games, 5 of 9 in the first game of the season and 6 of 11 from the floor in general in the third game. But just between the foul shooting, the overall look of the jump shot, the defensive weirdness, I guess that I would just call it. And he's not someone who's like really beasted on the boards for them this year either. I think it's definitely concerning. Look, the jump shot for him, and I didn't see the game against the Nets, so unless he reverted back, he hit his only 3-point attempt. Unless he reverted back to what it looked like. I saw someone, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, I wish I could credit them, saying it looks like he's holding the controller button too long while he's going up for a shot in 2K.
And look, again, just a massively tiny sample of only 75 minutes through 3 games, but the Grizzlies have been 15.7 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the floor. And that is not a great start from a guy you're hoping is going to be a breakout second-year player with all the injuries around him. Like, that's just not ideal.
The NBA is back in action and football is heading into the playoffs. You might not be at a game this year, but you can still be in on the action at BetOnline. BetOnline is going the extra mile to make sure you can get in on every possible chance to win this season. From game spreads and totals to team, player, and coaching props, BetOnline gives you more options to wager than anywhere else. You can get in on their season opening bonuses today and start off wagering on wins, division, and championship futures all day, every day. Head to BetOnline today and take advantage of all the great sign-up bonuses. Don't forget to use promo code BLUEWIRE, all one word, at betonline.ag. That's BLUEWIRE, all one word. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
This next question comes from Miroslav Shuk. I want Dan and Adam's top 5 MVP favorites. Actually, Adam's 2 to 5 favorites, since we know Monte Morris is number 1. So we did have the podcast where we made our awards predictions. Has your impression, though, I can remind you of, if you don't remember who you picked as your 5, of who you picked to see if you think that that's changed at all.
Why don't you run through both of ours just so people can be reminded?
Okay, so yours was Luka at 1, Giannis at 2, Dame at 3, Steph at 4, Tatum at 5. I had Tatum at 1, Doncic at 2, Steph at 3, Jokic at 4, Giannis at 5. If I had to pick changes from mine, I might bump Giannis way down with his start to the season. Has been a little bit odd. I think it's better to frame this in, is there anyone who you think right now that you didn't, not that you didn't consider them, but that is like wedged their way into consideration to be in the top 5 that you didn't initially pick?
Yes, absolutely.
And why is it Trae Young?
It's Nikola Jokic,
okay,
who has just been absolutely unreal for the Denver Nuggets. And the game before we're recording this podcast, he had 18 assists, and they were just fantastic, just dropping dimes all over the place to cutters, to everyone everywhere, because he has eyes all over the place, apparently. That was the first time a center had 18 assists since Wilt Chamberlain. At the time that we're recording this, and I'm talking right now while there's 10 minutes and 21 seconds left in the Nuggets-Kings game, Jokic has 8 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals on 4 of 4 shooting. He's just on a tear, and we have not seen him come out of the gates quite like this. We know how immensely valuable he is to the Nuggets, but he's typically a player who works his way up to that peak level. And if he's going to start at this level, that's just terrifying. Now, with Trae Young, I think to this point, he would be in the top 5 of the MVP voting if the season were to end right now. But whether that's sustainable is a different question. Just for fun, Basketball Reference's NBA MVP award tracker, which is based on historical voting results and how they correlate with different stats. The top 5 are fantastic right now. I don't know if you've looked at this at all, Dan.
Yeah, and it ruins both of the names I would have inserted into the conversation, at least early. Trae Young was.
So I'm definitely going to go through it. The top 5 they have right now are Jokic, 1%, James Harden, 1.1%, Darius Garland from the Cleveland Cavaliers, 1.9%, Domantas Sabonis, who has been phenomenal, at 2%, and Trae Young at 91.8%. So we might as well just hand him the award now.
He's in there. The one that's Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving is eminently could get into the conversation. Maybe they cannibalize votes from each other. As someone who had Steph in their initial top 5, I'd probably put say that one of them is more likely to finish in the top 5 than Steph at this point, just based on how the Warriors season has gone. Although they did pick up 2 straight wins, 2-2 going home for a long homestand. It's not the worst case scenario for Golden State. And so, that's where I think Trey is the most sustainable one that I forgot. Jokic for you is clear. I already had him in my top 5.
You think Trey is sustainable as a top 5 MVP threat?
Yeah, you don't?
I'm not sure, just because the Hawks have 3 wins, but they're over 3 non-playoff teams. And I don't know how sustainable this workload is, where he's not going to keep taking 15 free throws per game for the entire season. Coming into today, he was averaging more free throws than the Toronto Raptors as a team. So as fantastic as he is and as improved as he looks on defense, I'm not quite sure that they're going to need to be as reliant on him now that Rondo's back and Brandon Goodwin doesn't have to play any more minutes at point guard, mercifully. And just as the other guys get healthier and are able to take more of an offensive burden, I'm just not sure that he's going to be there this season, maybe next year. Just since it typically takes players, they gain the recognition and then they get the award votes the next year a lot of the times. So I'm not sure that I'm ready to put him in that conversation yet. I want to, I'm just not there.
The narrative is built for it if they keep dealing with so many injuries, though, and are just a decidedly good team. Next question comes from Robert. Which starter or starters should the Bulls trade when it's clear they just don't fit together at all? Also, does Lauri Markkanen look likely to perform well enough to earn $20 million a year in his next contract? Small sample size and dumb speculation, I know, is what his parenthetical read. I'll throw it to you first.
I mean, if Markkanen is going to continue to play like this, sure. Entering Tuesday, he was averaging... If he's going to continue to play like this, entering Tuesday, he's averaging 20 points, 7.7 rebounds. He's shooting 52.8% from the field, 47.6% from 3. That's just not going to be sustainable, though, and that's the issue. There's no way he's getting $20 million per year.
Yeah, he would be the player that I'd identify as a trade candidate for them, just because he plays what's going to be Patrick Williams' best position. And so unless you want to play both of them at the 4 and 5, and then you're looking at, then what's Wendell Carter Jr.'s chilling on the bench. I also think it's dangerous to reinvest in anyone at this point when you're still so early in the
we have no idea what the Bulls are going to look like.
Right. Yeah. And I was so disgusted with their first game of the season. They were just
I wasn't.
As a Hawks fan, I'm sure you weren't. They were just so bad. And then there are the obvious candidates, Thomas Satoransky, looking at him, Thaddeus Young as the veteran, Otto Porter, even if someone needs a wing and will take on his expiring contract. The one that I think they should look at as sort of a sell-high situation would be Zach LaVine. His contract is really good now. That contract has aged super well. And yeah, he's young enough to be a part of the next iteration, but he's sort of overtaxed. I'm just wondering what you could get from him this season. If you can get 2 high-end assets for him, I would probably pull the trigger. And that's not me trying to romanticize the idea of a rebuild. I just think, Karnisovas, go ahead and put your stamp on this roster even more so. Lauri Markkanen would be the one that I identify, though, because the other ones, it's Thaddeus Young and Satoransky have partial guarantees next year, so they could be viewed as they're not expiring because they'll cost you money to get rid of, but whatever. Markkanen's the one that you have to look at who you're going to pay, and even Otto Porter's expiring. I don't know what his market's going to look like. You do desperately need wings. I just don't know that Patrick Williams should be playing so much 3, and he hasn't been terrible there. He's been better defensively there than I would have expected him to be from the Bulls that I've watched. Again, they've played 4 games, and I've seen less than half of those 4 games. So just to clarify that, still, it would be Markkanen for me. I don't know if you would choose anybody else over him.
No, the only part of that I disagree with is I wouldn't trade LaVine. And maybe I'm just, and forgive the pun here, too bullish on him still. I don't think he's an empty stats guy. He might have been early in his career, but he is a legitimately good offensive basketball player. And I think that when you're rebuilding, you need someone like that. There's no doubt that the Bulls are still mired in their ongoing rebuild. And I think if you trade LaVine, no matter what the return you're getting might be, you're just starting over from scratch again. And it makes it harder to evaluate Patrick Williams. It makes it harder to evaluate Wendell Carter Jr. It makes it harder to evaluate Kobe White and whoever else you get. So I think that given LaVine's age and the favorable nature of his contract, that he's the kind of player who they should keep.
I think there's a justification to be made to keep him, but I also feel like as he's going to approach his next contract, I think he's a free agent in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, if you're not ready to compete by then, like now you're going to get to a point where you have to probably pay him a whole bunch of money to stick around. I don't know if that's the smartest thing. And you're dealing with the same time Wendell Carter Jr.'s future at that point. Kobe White is going to be extension eligible by that point. So I totally get what you're saying. And he is a good offensive player. I want to make that clear. But it's also, there's no evidence to suggest that he elevates the play of his teammates. Like his numbers just go towards, the Bulls are better on offense with him on the court, but they're still just terrible.
I just wonder how much of that is not being able to fill a favorable role. Just because when was the last time he played on a team with legitimate talent around him? Was it the Karl Anthony Towns Timberwolves really early in his career when he was still developing the point guard skills and trying to figure out what his best position was? Well, I don't think he's been given a chance to elevate his teammates because the teammates around him aren't necessarily capable of being elevated to this point.
Yeah, my whole thing with him is that he's been miscast, but that is part of the problem is that he can't be that. I don't think he could be your primary guy on a good team. Like you just can't saddle him with that level of playmaking responsibility. And that's just where I'm at with him. And unless the Bulls think they have that player in place soon, unless they think it's Kobe White, maybe it is. It's not going to be Patrick Williams. That's just not his role on offense. That's why I said sell high. I wouldn't just move him for the sake of moving him. Like this isn't a Kevin Love or Blake Griffin situation by any means. Next question, though, comes from Paulito. Does Marc Gasol and Montrezl Harrell's offensive addition make up for the defensive loss of Dwight and JaVale McGee, the latter of whom is playing very well in Cleveland right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does. Not only are they fantastic on offense, but Marc Gasol is still a phenomenal defender. And that alone helps. But the thing the Lakers needed to improve on, they had a great defense throughout all of last season. It was the half-court offense that struggled. And Montrezl Harrell is ultimately a half-court offensive player. Marc Gasol is a half-court offensive magician. So you're shoring up that weakness at the expense of a slight decline on the defensive end. This team is still at its best when Anthony Davis is playing the five. And he's not going to do that with Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee on the floor. He's definitely not going to do that with Marc Gasol on the floor either. But you're still setting yourself up to play your most effective style of basketball with those changes. So, I mean, between the offensive growth, the roster flexibility that you're given, and Marc Gasol's defense, I think that it's still a perfectly valid and probably an upgrade move.
The Lakers' half-court offense ranks in the 89th percentile when playing without LeBron James this season. Again, that's
unfathomable.
Such a tiny sample size. The most used lineup in that scenario has been Schroder, Wes Matthews, Kyle Kuzma, Anthony Davis, and Montrezl Harrell. The one quibble I have is that I probably wouldn't start both Gasol and Schroder, and I think it's easier to bring Schroder off the bench just looking at the way the front court rotation setup is. Just because I think that you should be staggering their minutes more rigidly. But look, the Lakers they're fine, and I think that I agree with everything you said there. They've definitely safeguarded their LeBron-less minutes as well as they can. I don't think there should ever be minutes where I think every single LeBron-less minute should basically be played with both of Schroder and Gasol on there, and it's easier to do that when one of them isn't starting, and so that would be Schroder. I think, look, you could argue that Schroeder's the one that needs to play every single non-LeBron minute, and that's easier to do if he's coming off the bench, even if you want to close games with him still.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like fairly comfortable saying the only thing that is going to prevent the Lakers from looking like a bona fide super team is either a significant injury to LeBron or Anthony Davis, or a decline in play from LeBron, which, is eminently possible. He's about to have his 36th birthday. Like, no one can defy Father Time forever except for maybe LeBron. So as hard as it is to believe that could happen, I think that's the only way that we're not talking about this team as just an absolute juggernaut.
Next question comes from Killian Eve. How are the Cavaliers doing this? Do you want me to take that?
Colin Sexton. Darius Garland, the Sexland combo. I mean, that backcourt has just been so offensively potent, and it's amazing that they're doing this while still trying to figure out Andre Drummond's ideal role, while Kevin Love has a calf injury, while Kevin Porter Jr. is still going through his legal and personal issues to make his debut. Like, this is this is a team that's defying the odds, and it's just because of those two guys right now.
Yeah, their defense has been unreasonably good. They are second in points allowed per possession right now. My guess would be that does not hold, but they've done, and using their game, they blew out the Sixers, who did not have Joel Embiid for that game, but they put up a fight against the Knicks even though they were down big. They just compete really hard, and I think Sexton's gotten better on that end. He put some full court pressure on during the New York game. They have the best defense in the league when they turn the ball over. Like, that's getting back after moments like that is super important. They're forcing turnovers right now more frequently than any other team without fouling a ton. Again, I don't know how sustainable this all is. Andre Drummond has been fantastic for them too. He had like a crazy sequence in the Philly game where he had 2 blocks, one of which was on Ben Simmons. He powered his way, put the ball on the floor to the hoop, dribbled the ball up the floor, threw a pass to Garland, and then threw a pass to, I think it was Nance or something, to set up for the easy transition lane. The Cavs are they're fun, and they have a lot of young talent, and they're not even at full strength right now. And you could ask, does Kevin Love actually make them better? He feels like he's someone who could really plug and play. Dylan Windler fractured his hand. Isaac Okoro's not playing right now, and he looked really good for a rookie. And so I don't know what I would call them. I think the word that's floating around NBA Twitter is probably a cliche, but it's also accurate. They're frisky. I wouldn't say that they're going to contend for a playoff spot, but right now, if they don't trade anybody, I would have thought they tried to trade Drummond this season. I think they still should. Maybe they could get to the play-in. I'm
willing to say they can compete for a playoff spot if they look like this.
Well,
and
I still think
everything boils down to the Sexland backcourt, because they've been so potent offensively that it's allowed everyone else to be that frisky on defense. They're winning games through frisky, but I think it just all stems from that young backcourt. And if it's that good, it makes everything around them better on both ends. Just because you have so many guys like Drummond, like Okoro, like Porter when he's healthy, who are capable of flitting around in half-court defense and wreaking havoc, and they're more empowered to do that and continuing to force turnovers and continuing to get back in transition when you have 2 guards who are dominating the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the game has clearly slowed down for Darius Garland. He looks good this year. Had a rocky performance against the Knicks, but overall he's been really good. Like I said, JaVale McGee before, and then Lauri Markkanen Jr. is huge. To have a legitimate body to throw a Ben Simmons player, but that's just absolutely monstrous. I'll be curious to see how much this holds. I just don't know. I don't know whether I expect it to hold. I'll say I am skeptical as to whether the defensive performance can hold. I don't necessarily think that what they've done offensively is unreasonable at this point, and they are, as I'm looking, they're only 16th in offensive efficiency. So it's not like they're setting the world on fire. They've shot a ridiculous clip from 3, if I'm not mistaken, and you have to wonder if that's going to hold. You look at Garland. We know Sexton can shoot, but Garland, he was billed as a shooter coming out of college. He didn't shoot too poorly from 3 last year, but he's shooting 45.5% from 3 right now. Sexton's at 54% right now. Jetty Osman's at 41%. JaVale McGee, 3 of 5 from beyond the arc this year, 60%. Lauri Markkanen Jr., 38.5%. So, but again, I want to see this team at full strength. I mostly want to see Isaac Okoro come back, but he and Kevin Love, I think, could end up helping them a great deal. I was going to say, if I had to force you to choose play-in or not, what are you picking for them right now?
I think they'll be in the play-in.
Who are the 5 teams in the East that are worse than them?
The 5 teams in the East that are worse than them. Let's go through it.
I mean, I'll give you the easy one. Charlotte, Chicago.
Right.
The Knicks, I would still say overall, even though the Knicks they're on one
Pistons.
Right now. The Pistons definitively, okay.
But beyond that, that's where it gets a little tricky.
Wizards, you could say maybe.
Yeah, probably the Wizards would be the 5th one below them.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, because I think that maybe, not that they steer out of it, but I think there's some regression to the mean here, and then also I could see them moving, not... You know what? Actually, they're not going to move any of the most important players of this. I could see them moving Drummond, but I don't know how much that really dings them. I'm still going to say no. I just have a suspicious feeling, but I welcome being wrong on this front.
So, fun fact I'll go back to that Basketball Reference NBA MVP award tracker. The Cavs are the only team to this point of the season with 2 players in the top 10. That's Colin Sexton at number 7 and Darius Garland at number 3. Who would have thought that the Cleveland Cavaliers have the NBA's best duo?
Who would have thought? Not me.
Yeah, me neither.
Look at us. It's the Paul Rudd meme right there.
2020 has already reshaped how we work, and it's almost over. Businesses across the globe are challenged to be their most efficient, which means every hire is critical. Well, Indeed is here to help. Unlike other sites, Indeed gives you full control and payment flexibility over your hiring. You only pay for what you need, you can pause your account at any time, and there are no long-term contracts. And now, Indeed's new way of matching you with candidates instantly delivers a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria that you can contact the moment you sponsor a job, making Indeed the only job site that can move as fast as you do. Right now, Indeed is offering our listeners a free $75 credit to boost your job post, which means more quality candidates will see it, and fast. Try Indeed out with a free $75 credit at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. This is their best offer available anywhere. Go right now to Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer is valid through December 31st. Terms and conditions apply.
Josh Sakow asks, if Harden is still around at the trade deadline, should the Warriors trade Wiggins, Oubre, Wiseman, and the Timberwolves pick for Harden?
We've thought favorably of that possibility in the past, but I'm kind of changing my mind there because the Warriors are further away from contention than we thought. Like, this team has not looked good to this early point in the season, and I'm no longer sure that you want to give up Wiseman, who looks extremely promising at this early stage, and all the other assets to make that happen. Like, I think it's as simple as that, we were at least tepidly in favor of that trade because it seemed like it could generate immediate title contention. And I'm no longer sure that there's the requisite depth and upside for that to happen, even with a Curry-Harden backcourt.
And while Wiseman's trade value is improved in just a few games, Wiggins has cratered, his clutch performance against the Pistons aside. And what is the opportunity cost of actually getting James Harden now? So the framework of the deal when I had Salman Ali on the pod was Wiggins, Wiseman, Looney, Pascal, and then we had the Minnesota pick plus 2 additional firsts and 2 swaps. Maybe you need, let's say, including the Minnesota pick, a total of 2 firsts and 2 swaps. But are you willing to give up control of 4 first-round picks, 3 of which would be your own, 1 of which would be the Minnesota pick, plus Wiseman? Because Wiggins' deal is just such a net negative. That's how you have to view it. And so I would still do it just because it's James Harden, but I need to see Draymond Green first to understand whether this team is actually one top 5 offensive player away from making the jump into authentic title contention. And I think that's the biggest question mark that we've seen. At the end of the day, though, it is James Harden. So if that deal's on the table, I don't know if you would work Oubre into it. Maybe that makes it more palatable to Houston because of his expiring contract, but you need the money to work. And maybe there's something you could work out where you're getting PJ Tucker back as well, because he would help a ton for the Warriors, who desperately need center play. And that's also the problem with trading Wiseman, is after you lose Chris, centers are kind of replaceable, but right now you're going to already rely on a bunch of Draymond Green's probably going to play a bunch of 5. We've already seen Pascal play some 5. Yeah, so that Tucker might have to be a part of that deal. I'd still do it, but I'm less confident about it. And I think what would be important is, if that's even a possibility, you need to see what you look like with Draymond Green first.
Yep.
Chencho Pokeball asks, what is a good package for George Hill and who needs him the most? I guess those questions are kind of intertwined because the package for George Hill depends on who actually needs him most. I'll throw some teams at you. Some people mentioned Brooklyn after the Dinwiddie injury. I get that, but I don't know that they need him. They have TLC. If Shamet starts shooting better, Hill could probably handle the ball more than both of them, but I don't know that you need to replace Dinwiddie unless you don't consider LeVert a good enough backup playmaker, and I would argue that he is. Also, Bruce Brown's best position is point guard, and so if you can find more minutes for him, I think that helps you. I thought Boston was a good one. That's
where my mind went first, but Peyton Pritchard has been phenomenal so far.
I just still playoff time, and they don't have he might be the knockdown shooter, but they could use just another guy who is molten from beyond them, not off the dribble stuff, just off the ball, absolute molten. And so they have the trade exception. They have some of those young guys if they're just going to do it with players, and they have salaries that they could pile on top of one another to get to George Hill, who I believe is making, what is he at, $11 million this season? I forgot to check that before we answered this, but they were a team that that sprung to mind for me. There are other contenders that you know where he would be a really good fit right now. Actually, it would be New Orleans, but they could have had him, but did not. Maybe a Dallas might be interesting for him.
You know, what was coming to mind for me is Phoenix.
That's interesting. They have Javon Carter and Cameron Payne.
Yeah, but are you really that excited about either of them at this point? Like, Javon Carter plays so hard, but that's primarily on the defensive end. I don't have much confidence in Payne. So getting that third ball handler alongside and behind Chris Paul and Devin Booker could go a long way. And they do have some front court clutter to get rid of, too.
Yeah, I could see Javon Carter's offense, especially his start. I could see that making some people nervous. Cameron Payne actually hasn't been too bad. Maybe the Clippers would be another. They need George Hill's not what you would call a point guard, but he would be the best point guard on their roster.
And the fewer Reggie Jackson minutes, the better.
Yeah, but he's also someone that you would just trust more to run point than Patrick Beverley in a playoff series, I would think. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe Miami. They probably need someone who's just a little bit better at shot creation. I was going to troll and say Milwaukee could really use him, but that's, we can move on from there. Phoenix is interesting, though. I think you could just name really any competent bench player, and Philly would definitely have a need.
You don't believe in Shake Milton?
I believe in Shake Milton, but you still need, I guess, is Tyrese Maxey your guy after that? Do you think he's good enough to shoulder those minutes?
Maybe. I really liked him coming into the draft.
Fair enough. I mean, those were the teams that would spring to mind for me. I think Boston.
Toronto could be interesting too, just because I'm not sure that they're ready to give big minutes to Malachi Flynn. So
you know what Nick Nurse would do too? You know what they would do too? Because Norman Powell is so frustrating. You could probably see Lowry, Van Fleet, and George Hill play together just for the hell of it. I'd be here for it.
It'd be really fun.
OG at the 4, Siakam at the 5. Let's roll. Those are the teams that spring to mind. Boston would most intrigue me. Look, if Orlando keeps this up, maybe them. They're 4-0. So.
Yeah, but I don't think you want to take touches away from Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz at this point.
If they're just decidedly intent on continuing their run of first-round exits, you go and you get George Hill, and you think about the rest later.
Is that's the hill you want to die on here?
Wow, that was bad. But Boston intrigues me most. And they have not only the trade exception, but just between their other young players, I think it's clear you wouldn't give up a Pritchard for them. But what is Carson Edwards to them at this point? Romeo Langford's injured. How high are they on him? I wouldn't give up Aaron Naismith or Grant Williams, but there's stuff you could do to get to the money to work, and so that would be one that interests me. Or you could just take them into your trade exception and send back a pick or do a separate trade with an actual player. You get the gist there. Next question as we roll through, try and get to as many of these as possible. Scrolling up because I scrolled past all of them. From Jacob Bourne, very good friend of the pod.
Oh no.
What's something in your life you've metaphorically or literally won by 51 points? Please either answer for yourselves or each other.
Wow. That's tough. I don't know that I've ever won anything by 51 points.
I'm trying to think of I've definitely won video games by a bunch of points against the computer. I'm just trying to think of what
Congrats.
I was ever. Never in real life though. I would be on the team that would be losing by 51 points.
Yeah, that was a pretty frequent occurrence for me as well.
Anyway, he also.
I want Jacob to tell us what our answers should be.
Right.
That's my answer to this question. Is that I need to hear from Jacob what he thinks our 51-point wins have been in life.
Jacob also sent this fun NBA facts about number 51. Top 51st draft picks: Monte Morris, Kyle Korver, and Lawrence Funderburk, who also wore number 51. And did you know Anton Jameson once scored 51 points in back-to-back games? And that the night of the second game, Kobe also scored 51. My question, what do you think of all of that? I'm just impressed he took the time to look it all up.
I'm both impressed and a little worried for him.
Right. This will be unless you have other ones, this will be the last one. Comes from Rod.
I do have one.
Okay. Pedrigo, Rodrin Cobb. Sorry if I missed your name here. Aside from the group of already established young guards, Doncic, Simmons, Young, Mitchell,
this is my one,
Murray, who is more likely to have the best career? And what about the highest peaks tiers? Russell, D'Angelo, I'm assuming D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, John Morant, De'Aaron Fox, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, both Ball brothers, LaMelo and Lonzo, Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Markelle Fultz, Derek White, and Hayes. Who's Hayes?
Killian.
Oh my God! I apologize, Pistons fan. Killian Hayes
or Jackson Hayes. It could be Jackson Hayes in
Well,
like a weird
guards.
hybrid point center
Right.
role.
So who do you think has?
Well, here's how I want to handle this, because
this
was the one I was going to bring up because I didn't think that you had seen this one. I want to draft these guys just in a vacuum. I want to go through and draft them with you.
The answer is no, but thank you for asking.
The answer to my request?
Yeah, is no.
You don't have that kind of authority here.
That's also fair. Let's do this. Who gets the first pick? I guess you should, because it was your idea.
I'm making you do it, so you can have the first pick.
Okay, I'm going to take Ja Morant.
Yeah, I figured you would. That's the right decision. I mean, he's the favorite to have the best career and the highest peak, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is even just seeing it this season, and he still has to get a little bit more comfortable with his three-point shot, even though it seems like he is more comfortable there. We're not talking about just an all-star. Like this, he's an all-NBA, like MVP candidate type player.
I'm totally with you. He was my easy number one choice. I'll go with De'Aaron Fox second. I feel like the game fully slowed down for him last year towards the end of the season, and I'm just excited to see the level that he can reach this year. His speed is unreal. He has such good command of the ball. I think this is the season we see it so often where these young guards who are tasked with so much offensive responsibility, they struggle on the defensive end until the offensive end becomes a little easier. I think he's going to become a complete star this year.
I think that's probably the right pick. The only other pick for me, well, I guess there's two possible ones, but I'm going to take one of them now.
There's two possible.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for me. He's already shown just the from-scratch offense. Would you like him to hit some more off-the-dribble threes? Yes, but he can at least work off the catch there. His just change of pace inside the arc is great. He needs to be a better playmaker. I think he makes up for that, where I do think he will get to a point where he can elevate an entire offense on his own, but immediately he makes up for what he can do on defense. We saw some lapses in the playoffs last year, also on offense as well from him, but he has wing range there. And so that's an easy two pick for me.
I don't think that was the right pick, but I don't think it was very wrong either. I would have gone with Jamal Murray. Just because we've seen him do it on the big stage. He absolutely detonated in last season's playoffs, and just the offensive flammability as he's becoming more comfortable as a lead ball handler and as a go-to scorer. He does not have the defensive upside or all-around upside of Gilgeous-Alexander, but just the ability to absolutely carry an offense in games that matter, especially in a playoff series where opposing coaches are making adjustments designed to slow him down and it's not working. Just the fact that we've already seen that from him makes me put him a little bit ahead.
We're not building an actual team here, right? We're just drafting these in a vacuum, correct?
Correct.
LaMelo Ball would be my pick. The scoring needs to come along, but his jumper doesn't bother me. I've seen him take some off the catch in Charlotte, and his passing is just otherworldly here. And I think he has a better chance of piloting and initiating offenses in the half court than Lonzo does right now. A much better chance, I should say, by the way.
That's fair. I think it's a risky pick, but it's hard to say that it's a wrong one. I'm going to go with Colin Sexton. I'm buying what we've seen at this early stage of the season for the Cavs. The shot is clicking, the command of the offense is clicking, it's sparking things on the other end. I think Seth Partnow from The Athletic made this comparison, but he looks like pre-scooter accident Monte Ellis, and it's accurate. I totally see that comparison. I actually had a friend organically make the same comparison earlier today, and yeah, I'm totally buying that. It's just this absolute offensive force as both a passer and a scorer.
This is where it gets really tough. I am going to take Derek White. I think he showed some stuff in the bubble last year. People were kind of up in arms about the extension that he got. He gives you just good positional defense at the 1 and the 2, can work off other players. If he just makes more of a concerted effort to use the pull-up jumper when defenses are going under him, and to maintain the same level of aggression, because when he can attack the rim, he can be pretty dangerous at points. I think it's a risky play, but I think he has a much higher ceiling still than he's shown, even though he's on the older side for these guards.
Yeah, totally fair. I'm going to go out on a limb here and go with Markelle Fultz next.
Oh, do not like this at all.
As I said, it's a risk, but he's still only 22 years old. And what we've seen so far this season for the Magic has been tremendous growth. Even though the 3-point jumper is not falling yet, he's taking them confidently. We've seen the free throw stroke improve dramatically. He's shooting 92.3% from the line through his first 3 games. And there's still so much room to improve here. And he still has so many of the explosive attributes that made him the number 1 pick before, all the drama that followed subsequently. So I don't think he's the best player of the remaining options right now, but that upside, like the original question asked, who's going to have the best career and who could have the highest peak? And I'm focusing largely on the peak question here, because if that jumper ever clicks, and even if it doesn't, Fultz could be a very valuable starting point guard for a long time.
I just don't think he just creates so much problems for you on offense if that jumper doesn't come along. And I don't really think there's any reason to believe it will, although his free throw percentage did skyrocket last year. I'm going to take another high ceiling play here. Anthony Edwards. I've been impressed with what little I've seen from him. It seems like he has better feel than you were championing. He's going to be a good scorer. He's going to be an elite finisher. Will the jumper come along? I think that's really fair to question. I'm going to bet just on him having such a super high peak on offense. And then also he's just strong enough to where I think not only is that going to help him with his finishing, but I think he eventually turns into a pretty good defender. So I'm going to make that dice roll.
I will say that as much as I harped on Anthony Edwards not being my favorite pick near the top of this draft, he's pleasantly surprised me, and I wanted him to pleasantly surprise me. As a fellow Georgia Bulldog, I'm still rooting for him, even if I thought that he would be a bust. And I do like a lot of what I'm seeing so far, even if that jumper still looks pretty darn shaky. But I'm going to go with D'Angelo Russell here. He's the only guy left who has been an all-star. Granted, it was now 3 seasons ago, but he is still a potent offensive weapon who can function as a lead scorer, can function as a lead playmaker. And that's just that pick and roll ability, that self-creation ability, even if he does rely on shoddy shot selection at times and doesn't get to the free throw line nearly as often as we'd like from these lead guards, he's still a fantastic offensive weapon.
I'm going to take Lonzo Ball here. I thought about taking him a little bit earlier too. There's just too many questions, as I mentioned earlier in the pod, about whether he can run an offense from stationary positions. He's absolutely lethal in transition. I think he's shooting sub 35% from 3 to start the season, but I think we've at least shown that the jumper is more of a threat now. He's actually shooting an absurd percentage on pull-up jumpers this season. And so if that really comes into play where he can dribble inside the arc and hit jumpers, that'll be a big deal for him on whether he can orchestrate from the half court, but it's also a matter of finishing, which I don't know that I'll ever have. Still, someone you can count on to hit catch and shoot threes, maybe a couple off the dribble jumpers, going to get you going in transition, good rebounder, good positional defense, can be disruptive off the ball. I feel pretty good about picking him here. And there's a chance that like he ends up having the peak of someone who should have gone much earlier in this fake draft.
Yeah, very, very much so. With 2 options left, I'm going to go with Darius Garland. The upside is just, it's too tantalizing here because he won't turn 21 until January 26th. This is a guy who was viewed as a lottery lock and a potential top 2 or 3 pick before injuries cut his Vanderbilt career short as a freshman to only 5 games. He still went 5th overall, had an up and down rookie season, which was to be expected as a guy who was still figuring so many things out. And it looks like he has figured them out this early in the season for the Cavs. If that shot is legit, if the playmaking is legit, then we're going to regret leaving him on the board this long.
Killian Hayes is all that's left. I actually think he's going to be good, and I tweeted this the other night. He's not had the most efficient start to the season, but in their game against the Hawks, he just had some really good flashes for me. I think his jumper will end up being fine, and it looks like he's going to end up just having really good feel for the game on the ball. And the turnovers you're going to see are that's just the cost of doing business with a rookie, some of the fouls that he's going to give you on defense. I don't know that he's ever going to be anyone that gets to the foul line a ton or is this expert finisher, but I think he eventually gives you spacing and just really solid playmaking. And so him being left on the board here is more about his relative unknownness than I think about his potential, because you could talk me into him over Garland, over Lonzo. I don't know over anybody else. Yeah, you could definitely talk me to him over Fultz. We actually do have one more question. This one comes from Noah Odage, or Odage. I'm sorry, I never got the pronunciation of your last name, but he is the co-host of the Stick to Sports podcast. Asks, what's the Knicks ceiling / potential with the core they have?
Well, they have Frank Ntilikina, so they should be a title contender.
I still want to know why you're pronouncing the T in Ntilikina. And now you're going to have me do it, in Ntilikina.
Just to mess with you.
if they don't make any changes this season, I would still say their ceiling tops out as like the 11th best team in the East, where I wouldn't expect them to make the play-in. And I already kind of mentioned this at the top of the pod. Like, they need eventually more shooters on this team to help out RJ Barrett if he's the guy they're rolling with. What they still lack is just the one person you could point to, though, and say, hey, that's our North Star, our guiding light. They've been a nuisance so far this season. I think they deserve all the credit for that, but with this exact roster, I don't know where I would put them in the East above 11th. I don't know what it would take. Like, Julius Randle would have to keep playing like this, as my voice cracked a little bit there. You would need Frank Ntilikina to continue shooting the hell out of three-pointers. You need Kevin Knox, has had some pretty good shooting games, even though he's not shooting the best clip from beyond the arc this season. Alec Burks, if he's healthy, he was sort of lighting it up. So if you're able to give minutes to him and Austin Rivers gets healthy and we see Mitchell Robinson get his fouls under control, which he's kind of done the past couple games, and Obi Toppin pans out, could they work their way into the play-in? I would say the keys to doing that are RJ Barrett has to be more game one, first half of game one for much of the season. Julius Randle has to play like he's playing now. Burks, you need Burks to be what he was before, and then you need someone to burst. And I wouldn't say that that's Mitchell Robinson. He's not going to give it to you on offense. Maybe it's Ntilikina showing that he can run the offense in absence of Elfrid Payton. So that would be it. I'll say 10th to be somewhat optimistic, but I don't know that I could talk myself into the best version of these Knicks being higher than that.
I don't have much to add to that. I'll just say that it would be a very, very Knicks move to be just good enough to contend for a meaningless play-in game in the East and miss out on Cade Cunningham and Jalen Suggs and Evan Mobley at the top of the 2021 draft. Like, that would be just vintage New York Knicks.
Yeah, I don't know if they get to that point where like Julius Randle has them like in the play-in like contention. I'm trading Julius Randle and I'm trading Alec Burks, and if Austin Rivers helping, you're gone. Nerlens Noel gone. This is not the season to do that. Like, you need.
I am so sold on both Cunningham and Suggs, and it's almost like the Knicks have needed a point guard for roughly forever.
But anyway, I don't think that's the danger. They do have, and look, in the regular season, a good defense wins you games. They're 7th in defensive efficiency right now. Some of that's luck. They have the 3rd best opponent effective field goal percentage in the league. And we saw the Cavaliers miss a ton of wide open looks against them. We saw the Bucks miss a crap ton of wide open looks against them. So I don't know that holds either. But I think they're going to end up being fun bad. That's my prediction for them. That's their ceiling.
I agree with that.
Fun bad.
I agree with that. Fun bad is a good ceiling.
That does it for us, though.
I don't like this podcast.
This was a good mailbag. We got to, I think, pretty much every question that came in. So thank you guys for your questions. Please, again, continue to send them in. If you have not done so, please, pretty please, with sugar on top, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Download every episode. Juice the numbers. Subscribe and unsubscribe. Help us there. Rate and unrate. And definitely rate and review. Go over to iTunes. Search Hardwood Knocks. I don't care whether you use iTunes or not. Search Hardwood Knocks on iTunes anyway. Throw us that 5-star rating, write a review. Those help us out a bunch. Until next time, I leave you with a shout out to the one, the only, shooting above 40% from beyond the arc since January 25th of last season, Knicks cornerstone, Frank Ntilikina.